Wishing you all a good new day. Today, we're going to talk about the topic of life begins when you find yourself. Okay, let's listen together. Life doesn't begin when you graduate. Life doesn't begin when you get that job or that promotion or that big house. Life begins the moment you stop pretending to be someone you're not. Life begins when you find yourself. And let me tell you something. Finding yourself is the scariest thing you'll ever do. Because when you find yourself, you have to face the truth. You have to face all the lies you've been telling yourself. You have to face all the time you wasted being someone else. I remember the exact moment I knew I had to change. I was sitting in a meeting, expensive suit, corner office view. Everyone thought I had it all. And I was sitting there thinking about jumping out the window. Not literally, but you know what I mean. I was thinking, I can't do this for another 30 years. I can't pretend for another 30 years. This isn't my life. This is someone else's life, and I'm just living it. You ever feel like that? Like you're watching your own life happen from the outside? Like you're not even the main character in your own story? That's what it feels like when you haven't found yourself yet. You're just going through the motions. Wake up, go to work, come home, watch TV, go to sleep, do it all over again. And every day you die a little bit more inside because you know this isn't what you're supposed to be doing. But here's the thing. Most people never find themselves. Most people live their entire lives being what other people expect them to be. They become what their parents wanted, what their friends expected, what society demanded. And then one day, they wake up at 60 years old and realize they never lived their own life. They lived someone else's life for 60 years. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine getting to the end and realizing you never even started? Don't ever let somebody tell you who you should be. Not even me. You gotta figure that out for yourself. And figuring it out isn't easy. It's the hardest work you'll ever do. Because finding yourself means you have to be honest with yourself. Brutally honest. You have to look at yourself in the mirror and ask the hard questions. Who am I really? What do I really want? What makes me come alive? Not what makes other people happy. Not what looks good on paper. What makes you come alive? I'll never forget what my grandfather told me before he died. He was 87 years old, lying in that hospital bed, and he grabbed my hand and he said, "Listen to me." He said, "I spent 60 years working a job I hated because it was the responsible thing to do. And you know what I realized? The most irresponsible thing I ever did was waste my life being responsible." He said, "Find yourself while you still can. Find yourself before it's too late." That hit me like a truck. Here was a man on his deathbed telling me not to make the same mistake he made. And I realized I was already making that mistake. I was already on that same path, working the job I didn't love, living the life I didn't choose, pretending to be happy when I was dying inside. You can't become the best version of yourself unless you know who yourself even is. And most people don't. They have no idea who they are. They know who they're supposed to be. They know who they're pretending to be, but they don't know who they actually are underneath all that. Strip away the job title. Strip away the clothes and the car and the house. Strip away everything external. Who are you? What's left? That's the question that terrifies people. Because when you strip everything away, you might not like what you find. You might find out you've been lying to yourself for years. You might find out the person you've been pretending to be is nothing like the person you actually are. And that's scary. That's terrifying. But it's also the most important discovery you'll ever make. I spent 6 months alone trying to figure out who I was. No job, no distractions, just me and my thoughts. And it was hell. Absolute hell. Because I had to face everything I'd been running from. I had to face the fact that I'd wasted years of my life. I had to face the fact that I'd let other people define me. I had to face the truth about myself. And the truth hurt. Man, did it hurt. But you know what? On the other side of that pain was freedom. Real freedom. Not the fake freedom of having money in the bank or a fancy title. Real freedom. The freedom of knowing exactly who you are and not apologizing for it. The freedom of living your truth instead of someone else's lie. Finding yourself isn't a one-time thing. It's not like you wake up one day and boom, you know everything about yourself. It's a process. It takes time. It takes work. You have to try things. You have to fail at things. You have to experience life and see what resonates with you and what doesn't. You have to pay attention to what makes you feel alive and what makes you feel dead inside. I tried everything. I took painting classes, even though I can't paint. I learned guitar, even though I'm terrible at it. I traveled to places I'd never been. I talked to people I normally wouldn't talk to. I read books I normally wouldn't read.
I was trying to figure out what lit me up inside, what made me forget about time, what made me feel like I was doing what I was put on this earth to do. And slowly, piece by piece, I started to find myself. I realized I loved helping people. I realized I loved creating things. I realized I loved being challenged. I realized I hated being told what to do. I realized I needed freedom more than I needed security. These were things I'd always known deep down, but I'd never admitted them to myself because they didn't fit the life I was supposed to be living. The moment you start living as yourself, everything changes. People notice. They can feel it. There's an energy you have when you're being authentic that you can never fake. When you're pretending to be someone else, people can sense that you're not real. But when you're being yourself, when you're living your truth, people are drawn to that. They respect that. Even if they don't understand it, they respect it. You want to know the real you? Pay attention to what you do when nobody's watching. Pay attention to what you think about when your mind wanders. Pay attention to what you would do if money wasn't a factor. Pay attention to what you would do if you knew you couldn't fail. Pay attention to what makes you angry. Pay attention to what makes you cry. That's where the real you lives, in those unguarded moments. I used to think finding yourself was selfish. I used to think it was irresponsible to quit a good job and go searching for meaning. I used to think I should just be grateful for what I had and stop complaining. But you know what's really selfish? Living a lie. Being miserable and making everyone around you miserable because you're too afraid to be yourself. That's selfish. Finding yourself and becoming the person you're meant to be, that's not selfish, that's necessary. Your life is waiting for you. Your real life. The life that makes you feel grateful to be alive. That life is waiting for you. But you have to go find it. It's not going to come to you. Nobody's going to hand you yourself on a silver platter. You have to do the work. You have to ask the hard questions. You have to be willing to burn down everything you've built if it's not built on a foundation of truth. You have to be willing to disappoint people. You have to be willing to let people think you're crazy. You have to be willing to start over. Starting over is terrifying. I get it. I've done it. I quit my job. I left my city. I lost friends who didn't understand. I disappointed my family. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. But it was also the best thing I've ever done. Because for the first time in my life, I was living my life. Not my parents' life, not my friend's life, not society's life. My life. You know what's funny? The people who judged me the most were the people who were most unhappy with their own lives. The people who were living their truth, they understood. They supported me because they knew what it took to make that leap. They knew what it took to find yourself and live as yourself. But the people who were still pretending, they hated it. My authenticity made them uncomfortable because it reminded them of their own inauthenticity. Don't let those people stop you. Don't let their fear become your fear. Don't let their limitations become your limitations. They're going to tell you you're being irresponsible. They're going to tell you you're throwing your life away. They're going to tell you you'll regret it. But the only thing you'll regret is not doing it sooner. Life is too short to be someone you're not. Life is too short to live by someone else's rules. Life is too short to chase dreams that aren't yours. You get one shot at this one life, and you can either spend it being yourself, or you can spend it being what other people want you to be. But you can't do both. I meet so many people who are waiting for the right time, waiting for permission, waiting for a sign, and I want to grab them and shake them and tell them the right time is now. You don't need permission to be yourself. You don't need a sign. You just need courage. Courage to look at your life honestly. Courage to admit what's not working. Courage to make a change. The voice in your head that's telling you can't do this, that's not your voice.
That's the voice of everyone who tried to make you into something you're not. That's the voice of fear. That's the voice of doubt. But underneath that voice, there's another voice, a quieter voice. That's your voice. That's the real you trying to get your attention. Listen to that voice. Trust that voice. When I finally listened to my own voice, everything made sense. All the years of confusion, all the years of feeling lost, it all made sense. I wasn't lost. I knew exactly where I was. I just wasn't being honest about it. I was ignoring my own truth because I was afraid of what would happen if I acknowledged it. Finding yourself requires you to be alone. And I don't mean physically alone, although that helps. I mean alone with your thoughts, alone with your feelings, alone with your truth. You can't find yourself in the noise. You can't find yourself when you're constantly distracted. You have to create space. You have to create silence. You have to be willing to sit with yourself and really look at who you are.
Most people can't do that. Most people are terrified of being alone with themselves. So they fill every moment with noise, with TV and social media and work and parties and anything to avoid being alone with their own thoughts. Because when you're alone with your thoughts, you have to face yourself. You have to face the truth. I spent a week in a cabin in the mountains. No phone, no internet, no TV, just me. And for the first 3 days, I thought I was going to lose my mind. I didn't know what to do with myself. I was so used to being distracted that I didn't know how to just be. But by day 4, something shifted. I started to hear myself. I started to feel myself. I started to remember who I was before the world told me who I should be. That's when I realized I'd been living on autopilot for years, just going through the motions, just doing what I was supposed to do. I wasn't making choices. I was following a script written by other people. And I'd been following it for so long that I forgot I could write my own script. You can write your own script. You can create your own life. But first, you have to find yourself. You have to know who you are. You have to know what you value. You have to know what you stand for. Because if you don't know those things, you'll just keep following someone else's script. You'll keep living someone else's life. What do you value? Really value? Not what you think you should value. What do you actually value? Is it peace? There's no right answer, but you have to know your answer, because your values determine your decisions, and your decisions determine your life. I thought I valued security. That's what I told myself. That's why I stayed in that job for so long. But when I really looked at it, what I valued was freedom. I valued the ability to make my own choices. I valued the ability to create. I valued the ability to help people on my own terms. Security was what I thought I should value. Freedom was what I actually valued. And once I admitted that to myself, everything changed. Your authentic self is buried under years of conditioning, years of being told how to think and how to act and how to be, years of trying to fit in, years of trying to be accepted, years of trying to be loved. But the irony is, the only way to be truly loved is to be truly yourself. Because fake love for a fake version of you isn't real love, it's just an illusion. I had friends who liked the fake version of me, the version that agreed with everything they said, the version that never rocked the boat, the version that was always available. But when I started being myself, when I started speaking my truth, some of those friends left. And you know what? Good. Because they didn't actually like me. They liked the version of me that made them comfortable, the version of me that didn't challenge them, the version of me that wasn't real. Real friends stick around when you find yourself. Real friends support you even when they don't understand. Real friends love you for who you are, not who you're pretending to be. And if you lose people when you start being yourself, you didn't lose anything real. You just stopped wasting time on fake relationships. Finding yourself means you might have to let go of everything. Your job, your relationship, your friend group, your city, everything. And that's terrifying. But holding on to things that aren't aligned with who you really are, that's even more terrifying. Because you can replace a job, you can make new friends, you can move to a new city, but you can't replace your life. You only get one. I'm not saying quit your job tomorrow. I'm not saying blow up your life. I'm saying start the process. Start asking the questions. Start being honest with yourself. Start small. Start by admitting one truth you've been avoiding. Start by doing one thing that the real you wants to do. Start by saying no to one thing that doesn't serve you. Start. The journey of finding yourself never ends, because you're always growing.
You're always changing. You're always evolving. The person you are today isn't the person you'll be in 5 years. But the essence of who you are, that's constant. And once you connect with that essence, once you find that core truth about yourself, you can build a life around it. I used to think I needed to have it all figured out. I used to think finding myself meant having all the answers. But that's not what it means. Finding yourself means being comfortable with the questions, being comfortable with not knowing, being comfortable with the process, being comfortable with the journey. You're gonna mess up. You're gonna try things that don't work. You're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna doubt yourself. That's part of it. That's how you learn. That's how you grow. Every mistake is information. Every failure is feedback. Every setback is a lesson. Pay attention, learn, adjust, keep going. The world needs you to find yourself. Not the fake version of you, not the polished version of you, the real you, the authentic you, the you that only you can be. Because there's something you're supposed to do in this world. There's a contribution only you can make. But you can't make that contribution if you're busy being someone else. Think about all the great people in history, the ones who changed the world, the ones who made a difference. They weren't trying to be like everyone else. They were being exactly who they were. And that's what made them great. Not their talent, not their intelligence, their authenticity. You have greatness inside you.
but you'll never access it if you're pretending to be someone else. You'll never make your unique contribution if you're following someone else's path. You have to find your own path. And you can't find your path until you find yourself. I'm 40 years old now. I found myself at 35 because some people never find themselves. Some people waste their entire lives. At least I found myself while I still had time left. At least I get to spend the rest of my life being me. How much time are you going to waste? How many more years are you going to pretend? How much longer are you going to live for everyone else? Because every day you wait is a day you're not living your real life. Every day you pretend is a day you're not being yourself. Every day you conform is a day you're betraying who you really are. Stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for the perfect time. Stop waiting for a sign. This is the sign, right now, this moment. This is your permission. You're allowed to be yourself. You're allowed to find yourself. You're allowed to live your truth. Nobody else is going to give you that permission. You have to give it to yourself. Life begins when you find yourself, not before. Everything before that is just preparation. Everything before that is just the warm-up. The real game starts when you step into who you really are, when you stop apologizing for yourself, when you stop shrinking yourself to fit into spaces you've outgrown, when you stop dimming your light to make other people comfortable. Be bright, be loud, be yourself, unapologetically yourself. The world will adjust. The people who matter will stick around. The opportunities that are meant for you will find you. But none of that can happen until you find yourself first. I look at my life now and I don't recognize it. It looks nothing like it did 5 years ago. Different job, different city, different friends, different everything. But you know what? I recognize myself now. When I look in the mirror, I see me, the real me. Not the person I was pretending to be, not the person everyone expected me to be, me. And that feeling of being aligned with yourself, that's what makes life worth living. Because you're not doing it for anyone else. You're not doing it to prove anything to anyone. You're doing it because it's your truth. You're doing it because it's who you are. Your life is waiting for you. And then have the courage to be that person. Have the courage to live as that person. Have the courage to build a life around that person. It won't be easy. Nothing worth doing is easy. You're gonna face resistance from other people, from yourself, from the world. But push through it. Keep going. Keep searching. Keep being honest with yourself. Because on the other side of that search is the life you're meant to live. Life begins when you find yourself. Everything else is just existing. Don't just exist. Live. Really live as yourself, for yourself. Starting right now. This is your one shot, your one life. Don't waste it being someone you're not. Find yourself and then be brave enough to be that person. Be brave enough to live that truth. Be brave enough to disappoint people who want you to stay small. Be brave enough to outgrow spaces you've outgrown. Be brave enough to become who you were always meant to be. The clock is ticking. Every moment you spend pretending is a moment you'll never get back. Every day you live for someone else is a day stolen from your real life. Stop stealing from yourself. Stop betraying yourself. Stop abandoning yourself. So, what do you think about today's topic? Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel so you won't miss any upcoming posts. Thanks for watching and see you next time.